My aunt fired me over a conference call while I was inspecting freezer units in our Des Moines location. 15 years of service ended in a 3-minute conversation. She didn't even wait for me to find a private office. The Heartland Grocer's badge still hung from my neck when security escorted me out. Employees I'd hired myself watched from behind checkout counters. Nobody made eye contact. My company truck keys were confiscated in the parking lot. I called an Uber. My grandfather built Heartland from nothing. 7 stores became 23 across 5 Midwestern states. He taught me every aspect of the business since I was 16. Operations, inventory management, staff scheduling, the unsexy backbone that kept profits flowing while Aunt Evelyn handled marketing and media appearances. I knew we were in trouble when Grandpa announced his retirement. His hands shook during the family dinner where he named Evelyn as president. I received no promotion, no acknowledgement of my 15 years running operations, just a toast to Heartland's exciting new chapter and my aunt's practiced smile. Evelyn moved into Grandpa's office the next morning, changed the locks by afternoon. 13 days later, I was unemployed. "We're modernizing leadership," she explained through my phone speaker while colleagues pretended not to listen. "Your replacement starts Monday." She hung up before I could respond. My replacement was Curtis Reinhardt, a consultant from National Foods. He'd never managed inventory during a snowstorm or negotiated with local farmers. But he had an MBA from Wharton and PowerPoint presentations full of buzzwords. Evelyn paid him twice my salary. I didn't argue, didn't demand severance, signed the termination papers without a word, cleared my desk while HR watched, left without saying goodbye, drove straight to my lawyer's office instead. The first email from a panicking store manager arrived 3 weeks later. Evelyn had cut staff hours by 20%. The second came a week after that. Local vendor contracts cancelled. The third reported food quality complaints from long-time customers. I never responded. I saved each message methodically, created folders sorted by date and topic, evidence accumulating like snow on a Midwestern highway. Grandpa had warned me 7 years earlier. We were having lunch at the diner across from our Madison store. "Real estate outlasts grocery trends," he said between bites of apple pie. "Own the land beneath your feet whenever possible." His advice wasn't random. He knew his daughter better than anyone. I created Cornerstone Holdings LLC the following week, used my annual bonuses and a small inheritance from my mother, purchased the land beneath our Madison store when the original owner decided to retire to Florida. The timing was perfect. Heartland's lease was up for renewal. I offered favorable terms through my shell company. Evelyn signed without reading the fine print. 2 years later, I acquired the Des Moines property. 3 years after that, Omaha. Each time using different LLCs, different attorneys, each time offering lease terms just attractive enough to prevent scrutiny. Our 3 most profitable locations now sat on my land. Evelyn never noticed. She was too busy planning her media appearances, too focused on redesigning logos and store displays, too eager to transform our practical Midwestern chain into something trendy and upscale. The kind of store that sold $8 loaves of artisanal bread to people who complained about grocery prices. Operations suffered under her leadership. Veteran employees quit. Suppliers grew frustrated with late payments. Customers noticed declining quality. Stock levels became unpredictable. The backbone I'd built began to fracture. Evelyn's email arrived 6 months after my termination. "Need access to operations files. Password doesn't work." No greeting, no acknowledgement of the chaos she'd created, just an expectation of help. I didn't respond immediately. Let her wait 24 hours while I played with my daughter at the park, built a snowman in our backyard, helped my son with his science project, the life I'd been missing while working 70-hour weeks. "All files are on the shared drive where they've always been," I finally replied. Organized by quarter and department. She knew this. Everyone knew this. It was the system I'd maintained for over a decade. 3 days later, a certified letter arrived from Heartland's legal department. They demanded all proprietary company information in my possession, claimed I was withholding critical operational data, threatened legal action if I didn't comply within 48 hours. My attorney responded with a simple letter. All company materials were returned upon termination. Mr. Stevens has fully complied with all contractual obligations. Any operational difficulties are management issues, not information deficiencies. The insurance audit revealed everything. Heartland's CFO discovered the ownership discrepancy while updating property records. 3 prime locations sitting on land owned by anonymous LLCs. Leases expiring within 18 months. No option to purchase included. Evelyn's panicked voicemail came at 2 in the morning. We need to talk immediately. There's been a misunderstanding with some property records. Her voice cracked with something I'd never heard before. Fear. I didn't call back. Instead, I made coffee, reviewed my files, prepared for the confrontation 7 years in the making. What Evelyn didn't know was that I had received an interesting document the previous week. A misfiled permit application forwarded by a former colleague still loyal to me. Architectural plans for a high-end grocery store called Eve Market Co. The proposed location was 3 blocks from our Madison store. The applicant was my aunt. While running Heartland into the ground, she'd been planning her own competing chain all along. The final betrayal in a lifetime of taking credit for other people's work. The property records weren't a misunderstanding. They were my insurance policy. I didn't feel anger anymore, just clarity. The cold, precise focus of someone who had planned for this exact moment. The pieces were in position. The board meeting was scheduled for Friday. The evidence was organized in labeled folders. Evelyn had taught me an important lesson after all. Family business isn't about family, it's about business. I scheduled a meeting with Sunrise Markets the day after discovering Evelyn's competing venture. Their expansion team had been trying to enter our markets for years. We met at a steakhouse 30 miles outside Madison. Neutral territory. No chance of being recognized. The Sunrise executives arrived 15 minutes early. 2 men and a woman in sensible suits. No flashy watches or designer labels. Practical Midwesterners like me. They ordered coffee while waiting. No alcohol. This was business. Heartland's leases expire in 18 months, I explained after introductions. 3 premium locations, Madison, Des Moines, and Omaha. I control the land beneath all of them. I slid the property records across the table. The woman, Janet Pierce, operations director, reviewed them carefully. And Heartland doesn't know you own these properties, she asked. Direct, no judgment, just clarifying facts. The current president doesn't, I confirmed. My grandfather did. He suggested the arrangement. This wasn't entirely accurate. Grandpa had suggested land ownership. The specific strategy was mine. We discussed terms for 2 hours. They wanted assurance I wouldn't sell the land to another competitor. I wanted fair market lease rates and operational oversight. We found middle ground. The contract was 12 pages. No unnecessary clauses, no loopholes. Clean, straightforward business. Janet Pierce became my point of contact. We exchanged private email addresses, created secure document sharing protocols, established regular check-in calls. Professional. Methodical. No room for misunderstandings. I drove home and slept 8 uninterrupted hours for the first time since my termination. The pieces were moving. Evelyn called 6 times the next day. I didn't answer. She left increasingly desperate voicemails. We need to discuss these property issues immediately. Then, there must be some confusion about the lease agreements. Finally, Michael, please. We're family. We can work this out. I texted a single response. Available to meet Friday, your office, 3 p.m. She replied instantly. Tomorrow instead? I didn't respond. Friday gave me time to compile everything. Thursday morning, I visited my grandfather. His retirement community sat on 10 manicured acres overlooking Lake Michigan. He looked smaller somehow, less commanding. The oxygen tube in his nose was new. She fired you, he said when I sat down. not a question. A statement of fact. He still read the industry newsletters. Still had contacts who kept him informed. Yes, I didn't elaborate, didn't need to. And now she's discovered the properties. Again, not a question. His mind remained sharp even as his body failed him. I nodded, poured him water from the bedside pitcher, adjusted his pillow without being asked. "You've made arrangements." He looked at me directly. The same expression he wore when testing me on inventory management or staff scheduling. Expecting competence, sunrise markets. 18-month transition once leases expire, current employees retained, vendor contracts honored, fair market value for the buildings. He closed his eyes, nodded once. She always wanted everything at once, never understood foundations take time. His tacit approval was all I needed. I spent the afternoon organizing documents chronologically, printed emails, screenshots of text messages, financial reports showing Heartland's decline under Evelyn's leadership, architectural plans for Eve Market covered business registration paperwork, bank transfers showing company resources diverted to her personal project. Everything fit into a black leather portfolio, organized, tabbed, irrefutable. Friday morning, I dressed carefully, my best suit, grandfather's cufflinks, the tie my son had given me for my birthday, armor for the battlefield ahead. I arrived at Heartland headquarters at 2:45, 15 minutes early. The receptionist, Sarah, 22, nursing student hired during my tenure, looked startled when I approached. "Mr. Stevens, we weren't expecting. I have an appointment with Ms. Roberts." Using Evelyn's last name instead of aunt established the professional nature of our meeting. Sarah checked the calendar, nodded awkwardly, called upstairs. The elevator ride to the 6th floor took 47 seconds. I counted each one. The executive floor looked different. Modernized with Evelyn's aesthetic. Grey walls, abstract art, uncomfortable-looking furniture no one actually sat in. Form over function, style over substance. Her assistant, someone new, not an employee I recognized, escorted me to the conference room instead of her office. "Ms. Roberts will join you shortly." The door closed with a soft click. I was being staged, made to wait, a power play. I didn't sit, didn't remove my coat. Stood looking out the window at the parking lot where I'd surrendered my keys 6 months earlier. The corner space marked "President held Evelyn's white Tesla." A recent purchase, unnecessary, conspicuous. The door opened exactly 17 minutes later. Evelyn entered with 2 men, legal counsel, based on their expressions and briefcases. She'd planned this as an ambush, expected me defensive, unprepared. "Michael." Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Thank you for coming. These are our attorneys, Mr. Grayson and Mr. Hoffman." Neither offered to shake hands. I nodded once in acknowledgement. "Please, sit." She gestured to the chair positioned to face all 3 of them. Another power play. I remained standing. "I've reviewed the property records," she began. "There appears to be some confusion regarding ownership of several key locations." Her tone suggested clerical error rather than deliberate strategy. "These gentlemen are here to help us sort through this misunderstanding." I placed my portfolio on the table, opened to the first tab. "There's no misunderstanding. Cornerstone Holdings LLC purchased the Madison property 7 years ago. Midwest Foundation LLC acquired Des Moines 5 years ago. Plainview Investments LLC bought Omaha 3 years ago." I slid the deed records across the table. "I control all 3 entities." Her smile faltered. The attorneys exchanged glances. This wasn't proceeding as they'd rehearsed. "That presents a significant conflict of interest," the older attorney Grayson stated. "As a Heartland executive when these purchases were made, I disclosed the investments to the company president at the time of purchase. I removed a letter from the second tab, Grandpa's signature at the bottom, full transparency, properly documented." "That document isn't in our files," Evelyn snapped. "I have the original. And 3 notarized copies. One with my attorney, one in my safe deposit box, one delivered to the board chair this morning. The first crack in her composure appeared, a slight widening of the eyes. Recalculation. Even so, the younger attorney interjected, these lease terms are highly unusual, potentially unenforceable. The leases were reviewed by Heartland's previous counsel before signing. Standard commercial terms. Nothing unusual except the favorable rates I offered. I turned to Evelyn. Rates you happily accepted without reading the details. The first direct hit. Her jaw tightened. What exactly are you hoping to achieve here, Michael? Her voice remained controlled. Professional. But I heard the undertone. Worry. Clarity. I removed the Eve Market documents from the third tab, placed them side by side with Heartland financial reports. While running this company into the ground, you've been developing a competing brand. Planning to open locations near our highest performing stores, intending to replace the business our grandfather built with your personal venture. The color drained from her face. The attorneys looked confused. They hadn't been briefed on this aspect. That's absurd, she attempted. Eve Market is a concept exploration, a potential sub-brand for Heartland, filed under separate corporate structure, different tax ID, different ownership records, no connection to Heartland whatsoever. I placed the business registration next to bank statements showing transfers from Heartland's accounts to Eve Market contractors, funded with misappropriated company resources. The younger attorney closed his notebook. Ms. Roberts, I think we should continue this discussion privately. That won't be necessary. I checked my watch. The board emergency session begins in 20 minutes. 7th floor conference room. I've been asked to present this information directly. This was the checkmate move. Her eyes darted between the documents, her attorneys, and me, searching for escape routes, finding none. You've been planning this for years. Not a question, a realization spoken aloud. I've been protecting the company for years. I gathered the documents methodically, returned them to their proper tabs, something you were entrusted to do. The board won't side with you over me. A desperate final play. I'm the president. The board will side with evidence. With fiduciary responsibility, with the company's survival. I closed the portfolio, secured the clasp. Politics was always your strength, not mine. I walked to the door without waiting for response. Paused with my hand on the handle. Grandpa sends his regards. The board meeting lasted 3 hours and 27 minutes. Evelyn spoke for 42 of those minutes, denied, deflected, attempted to reframe the narrative. The evidence spoke louder. The vote was unanimous. Immediate removal as president, financial audit of all accounts, legal review of all her actions during her tenure, the corporate version of salt on scorched earth. They offered me the presidency in the closed session that followed. I declined, recommended Janet Pierce from Sunrise instead, explained the transition plan already in motion. The board members looked relieved. Clean resolution without family complications. I left with the same portfolio I'd arrived with. Evidence preserved, strategy vindicated, 15 years of work protected, if not in the way I'd originally imagined. The first call came from a business reporter 24 hours later. Care to comment on the leadership changes at Heartland? Word traveled fast in our industry. I declined comment, referred them to the board chairman. The second call came from Evelyn's son, my cousin Thomas, 22 years old, just graduated college. Mum's not answering her phone. What the hell happened? I told him to check his email. I'd sent documents explaining everything, no accusations, just facts. He deserved to understand why his mother's reputation was about to implode. The third call never came. Evelyn disappeared to her lake house, changed her number, deleted social media accounts. Her carefully constructed public image couldn't survive the reality exposed in those documents. Eve Market Co. never opened a single store. Investors pulled out when the scandal broke. Vendors refused contracts. The business died before it began. Meanwhile, Heartland stabilized under interim leadership. Sunrise's acquisition proceeded exactly as planned. Janet Pierce implemented many of my original operational systems. Employees kept their jobs. Customers barely noticed the transition. I maintained ownership of the land, collected fair market rent, attended quarterly review meetings, remained the foundation beneath the visible structure, exactly as Grandpa had taught me. 6 months after the board meeting, I stood in the parking lot of the Madison store. The Heartland sign had been replaced with Sunrise's blue and orange logo. Same building, different name. The shopping cart still squeaked on the left front wheel. Some things never changed. Janet Pierce met me by the loading dock, 7:30 in the morning, before the store opened. We walked the floor together, checked inventory levels, inspected produce displays, old habits. Sales are up 17% since the transition, she reported. No embellishment, just facts. I appreciated her style. Staff retention at 94%. Customer satisfaction scores improving weekly. I nodded, didn't need to speak. The numbers told the story better than words could. Your operational manuals saved us months of work. She stopped by the dairy section. The temperature gauge read 36 degrees. Optimal. Most acquired stores take a year to integrate fully. These took 8 weeks. My systems had survived even when my position hadn't. There was satisfaction in that knowledge. We finished in the employee break room. The same faded blue couch remained against the wall. The same coffee machine with its permanent calcium stains. Sunrise hadn't wasted money on cosmetic changes. Smart. The Des Moines and Omaha transitions are scheduled for next month, Janet said, as we reviewed the calendar. We'd like you there as consultant. She named a daily rate that made my eyebrows rise. Worth more as an advisor than I'd been as an executive. I agreed with a handshake. No paperwork needed yet. Trust established through actions, not documents. Evelyn resurfaced 2 weeks later. A carefully orchestrated interview with a sympathetic business magazine. She portrayed herself as visionary, hampered by old-fashioned thinking, claimed her Eve Market concept had been intended to revitalize Heartland's brand position, called her removal a family disagreement that spiraled unnecessarily. I didn't respond publicly, didn't need to. 3 former board members gave statements refuting her version. The financial evidence spoke for itself. Her reinvention attempt failed before it gained traction. The legal consequences came next. Shareholder lawsuit, financial recovery claims, criminal investigation for fund misappropriation. She settled everything privately, paid restitution, avoided trial. Her reputation remained the heaviest casualty. Grandpa died peacefully 4 months later. His funeral brought the family together one final time. Evelyn stood across the grave from me. Thinner, grayer, diminished without her corporate armor. We exchanged no words, made no gestures of reconciliation. Some bridges remained burned by choice. Thomas Evelyn's son approached me at the reception. Awkward, unsure. 23 years old and suddenly without the family legacy he'd expected to inherit. I need to understand what really happened, he said, direct like his grandfather. We met for lunch the following week. I brought the original documents, all the evidence, no editorializing. Let him draw his own conclusions. Mom always said you were too focused on details to see the big picture, he observed after reviewing everything. But the details were the picture all along, weren't they? Smart kid. Better business instincts than his mother. I offered him an internship with my new consulting firm. He accepted on the spot. The Heartland name disappeared completely within a year. Sunrise replaced all signage, updated all branding. The transition appeared seamless to most customers. Only industry insiders understood what had really happened. My consulting business grew steadily. Former Heartland managers sought my advice. Competitor chains requested operational audits. 3 job offers from national corporations arrived within 6 months. I declined them all. Independence suited me better than corporate politics. The property investments yielded consistent returns. I purchased 4 additional commercial lots in growing communities, created college funds for my children, established a scholarship at the local community college for students studying business management. Financial security built on literal foundations. Evelyn launched another venture 2 years later, a meal kit delivery service targeting urban professionals, venture capital funded, heavily marketed, ultimately unsuccessful. She hadn't learned that foundations matter more than facades. I ran into her at an industry conference in Chicago. Pure coincidence. She was pitching her newest concept to potential investors. I was consulting with a regional chain on expansion strategy. We found ourselves alone in an elevator for 23 floors. "You could have destroyed me completely," she said as we descended, not looking at me, voice barely audible above the elevator hum. "Instead, you left me enough to restart." Why? I considered various responses, settled on truth. Because Grandpa would have wanted family to survive even when business didn't. She nodded once, exited at the lobby without another word. Our last interaction. Thomas joined my firm full-time after graduation, brought fresh perspectives, modern approaches to traditional systems, the perfect complement to my experience. We never discussed his mother during work hours. Professional boundaries remained clear. The Sunrise stores continue to thrive on my land. 10-year leases signed at fair market rates, quarterly performance reviews, maintain accountability. Janet Pierce became their Midwest regional president. She sends me Christmas cards with handwritten notes about their yearly performance. Standing in that Madison parking lot today, 15 years after being fired, I realized something important. Evelyn thought owning the company meant controlling everything. I understood that owning the foundation was always more powerful. My name isn't on any store signage. My face doesn't appear in corporate materials, but my systems keep the operations running smoothly. My property agreements secure the locations. My influence remains in every inventory protocol and scheduling template. Some people build empires that collapse under their own weight. I built something invisible but unshakable, the ground beneath the empire, the foundation that remains when facades crumble. That's the true legacy my grandfather taught me, not ownership, foundation.